Today we are talking about DogMan, which is the new film from director Luc Besson. It's a bit of a comeback film for him. It's the very famous, legendary filmmaker who directed the films The Fifth Element and the Transporter series. But my name is Phil, we are Boys on Film, and Luc is here, Chris is here!
Hey!
Now I've summed up the story in a very kind of pocket-sized synopsis. Boy has abusive father, boy gets affection from dogs, grows older, runs a home for stray dogs. He has a love of theatre and cabaret, helps to right wrongs with help from his dogs. The State Department closes the stray home. The mobster he crossed seeks revenge.
You know, it kind of started and I was like, okay, intriguing beginning, you know, what's going on here? It's a really interesting scene because a man in a dress wakes up in a road accident and you're like, okay, how did that happen? And there's a load of dogs in the back of the van. You know, it's one of those kind of things where it kind of retells the story backwards and then, not backwards, goes back to the beginning and tells the story again. And then on the end, there's this kind of the end bit. The more I watched it, the more I was thinking, this film's kind of just got it all. I kind of think the only thing it didn't have was aliens.
Some of those dogs could have been aliens.
I mean, it's got like drag queens. It's got dogs. It's got thugs. It's got God. It's got love. It's got drama. It's got Edith friggin' Piaf. Yeah, I just thought it was really kind of rich. It just had a lot of different things to offer as an audience. And okay, you and me are dog lovers, so I think we're probably going to get the dog thing a bit more than other people.
I think you're right, because I think when you think about the genres as well of films, this pretty much has a lot of everything as well, because you've got comedy, you've got drama, you've got thriller, you've got action, and you've got a little bit of kind of childlike animation type stuff. I mean, there's not animation in it, but you've got that kind of, do you know what I mean by that? I mean, because the dogs really do give it that childlike element.
There's a couple of bits in the film where the likes of you and I who love dogs are just going to go, oh yeah, aren't those clever dogs? But people who don't get it are just going to go, okay, I kept thinking it was a bit of a mixture between Home Alone, where there's all those tricks set up that kind of trip people over and, you know, all that kind of stuff that are just way cleverer than a 9-year-old boy could ever come up with, but we all go for it anyway. And there's obviously a bit of the 101 Dalmatians thing about it, where the dogs just act completely like human beings a lot of the time. And like I say, you and I are willing to go, doesn't matter, cute dogs, we don't care. But I can see a more cynical audience going, hang on a minute, why would a dog go and do that just because someone clicks their fingers? You know, how well trained is a dog to do that? But if you can put those things aside, I just found it really really entertaining, really good.
As a boy, he's, you know, got an abusive father. He's made to live in his family kennel as well. So he's with his dogs, so he forms this bond with the dogs. And like you say, it's great for dog lovers because it's that whole thing of connection and love as well. I mean, there's a quote from the film where he says, dogs never lie when they talk about love. It's very pro-dog, isn't it, this film?
It is very pro-dog. And I think what it particularly is about, what it's pro for me, is it's very pro-dog relationship, as in, you know, the relationship you have with your dog and what you get from them and what they get from you. It's kind of, you know, it's very clear in this film, you know, his relationship, Caleb's relationship with the dogs is very mutual. You know, they love each other. You know, they look after him and he looks after them, and that's a very, you know, when you have a dog, that's what happens. You know, it's very natural, and I think you're right. You can only make that kind of film if that's how you experience your life. Probably, I think if you get that as an audience member, I think it will mean a lot for sure.
Absolutely, and I think it's also pro-LGBT as well, because I was worried when I saw the trailer because, one, I said to you, I thought it was a different film to what I eventually saw. I thought it was going to be more gritty and more dark, and it has got quite an upbeat, light feel about it, even though obviously some of the storyline is quite dark. But I think it's very pro-LGBT in the sense that I was expecting it to be not mocking of LGBT, because I read somewhere on Twitter, I think it was on Twitter, where, you know, there are a few people that hadn't actually seen the film, but they thought after seeing the trailer that it was mocking trans people or mocking gay people, and I didn't get that at all. I actually thought it was very sensitive to that, and obviously he becomes a different character than what I thought he was going to be as well, because you said there's a scene where he's pulled over by the police at the beginning, or he's arrested, because it goes back in time, doesn't it? It starts at the end and then goes back to explain the story. And I thought he was going to be a bit of a tragic case, because we often see that, don't we, with LGBT characters, that, you know, they fall victim to crime because of their abusive upbringing. And of course, he has had that abusive upbringing, but it doesn't make him a desperate loser character.
Absolutely not. I mean, he's incredibly, considering, that he's not born, but raised in this kind of dog kennel at home, and that he's got very little socialization and very little education. He's really emotionally intelligent. And I think, the kind of inference there is that he's learned that from the dogs who've cared for him and looked after him, and that they've developed these relationships. And that means that he's been able to evolve and become a really mature adult in a way that a whole bunch of adults just never get anywhere near. I mean, he's got real emotional intelligence. And, when he's, there's a kind of, one of the backbones of the film is this kind of prolonged interview or series of interviews he's having with the psychiatrist, because they're just like, who is this person we found in this van with all these dogs? We just don't get it. We want to understand. So she goes in there to kind of try and understand, his situation. And he talks about it really eloquently. He talks about it in a really balanced and fair way. He's very philosophical about, when his end is going to come, or how his end is going to come, and about justice and all sorts of things. He's got real kind of maturity about those things in a way that you kind of think, wow, you were raised by dogs. That's pretty cool. But, you're right. That means that he's not this kind of tragic mess of a character at all. He's actually really sorted in all sorts of ways. He knows himself incredibly well, and he reacts to the situations he's in slightly because of the way he was brought up by a pack of dogs, so he reacts to things, in a way you might expect him to in that case.
And also, I guess the dogs do tend to be with him and give him love at all times as well, which is what a dog does, because they're very loyal, because they stick by you. Because he, obviously faces a lot of torment, like a lot of us do. We face tough times during our lives, and, as an adult, even after going through that abusive childhood, as an adult, he's trying to do good in the world by looking after these dogs and, taking care of them in the stray home. But then obviously he has them taken away because the stray home is shut down. So he's trying to find solace. He's trying to find ways of making life better and also enjoy his life as well, because he goes to that gay club and he meets those drag queens. It's in some ways it's not realistic, because the characters, the drag queens, are very supportive of him, and I'm not so sure that a lot of drag queens would be in that position. They'd be out for themselves, I'm sure, because we've all seen drag queens, especially in London.
A lot of drag queens that you hang around with. The
very protective.
I hang around with are much nicer than
cutting your face and pulling your hair.
I thought, the way that when he first arrives in that scene, there is a kind of suspicion of why he's there and what he's doing there. I think they develop a kinship with him, and they start to see what they might have in common rather than what they've got that makes them different. And he's really welcomed in, absolutely, and really supported. Although there is that kind of really precarious in his first performance. There's that really precarious moment where he's asked them to help him at the end of his performance, and they're so enraptured by his performance they slightly forget for a few seconds that they're supposed to be helping him out, and he's like, you need to come and help me now, and they're like, yeah, you're amazing, and it's like, just okay, I know I'm amazing, just come and help me out, I need help. How many other films can you think of where there are very convincing kind of drag queen roles that are played, I think, by people in the community, people who know what they're talking about, people who are doing that? And I'm not going to say that about the Thugs as well, but the Thugs were pretty convincing performances too. Wouldn't have been out of place in a much more action-based film without the kind of comedy or anything else. And these things are coexisting in this film because they're coexisting in this guy's life, and that's how it's presented to us. All of these things are in his life. Apparently
they were auditioned in a real gay club. I think I read somewhere, I'm sure I read somewhere that they were genuine drag queens. So that did give it that sense of, the knowing feel, because they did feel like drag queens that we knew. So obviously, that felt very real. But that scene is just great though, because he's lip syncing to Marlene Dietrich and
Marlene Dietrich.
Yeah, both. He did both songs, didn't he? And it was great. I mean, he was great at the lip sync, because at the beginning I did think, oh no, this is going to be a bit like Silence of the Lambs, the characters Silence of the Lambs.
He's not creepy, and actually for me it's very well explained, his interest in theatre and drag and dressing up and femininity, actually.
Yeah.
Because I think actually what's really interesting is that when the psychiatrist asks him whether he's ever been in love, he says he was in love with a woman once. And actually his sexuality is very, very fluid, and you piece together bits of the story because he's in this kennel. His only real exposure to the outside world is a stash of magazines that his mum has hidden in the kennel because the husband, his father, won't let her read those things in the house. He sees them as kind of profane. So he has access to this whole woman's world when he's in the kennel as well. So his dual influences, which are actually having equal impact on him as a person, are living with a bunch of pack animals who look after each other and welcome him in, the dogs, and the world of women's magazines, which is all about lipstick and glamour and, 50s glamour, basically, because they're all kind of old magazines. And those two things kind of come together and just create him, basically. And they are who he becomes. That is who he is, ultimately.
Yeah. Apparently it's inspired by a true life story, which I didn't know until I just read it just now on the email. So, that's quite shocking. It's kind of playful, though. Like I said earlier, it doesn't feel like something that is going to stay with you for the wrong reasons. It stays with you, I think, because it's an enjoyable ride. It's an enjoyable movie. It's not too dark. If that makes sense.
It's not scarring, and I think there's some violence, but it's not extreme in any way. It's slightly comic booky. I'm thinking of the thing with the dog and the thug,
the gonad crunching scene.
If that's what we're going to call it, we're going to call it the gonad.
That did make me lol.
That bit, is a little bit comic book, but at the same time, there's a sense of menace about it. You've seen this kind of gangland leader being all tough and stuff, and this dog marches in as if owns the place and just grabs him in the nuts and won't let him out of this hold. And, stupid as that kind of sounds, people who haven't seen the film listening to this are going to go, that sounds stupid. There's something about it that's actually quite, genuine as well, actually. It's plausible in the context of the film, absolutely.
Yeah, the press release says it's Taxi Driver meets Lassie, which I thought was a great way of summing up the film, if you're wondering what sort of film this is.
I read that before we watched the film, and I read it out to my husband, and I was like, we're going to watch this film, it looks really good, and it says here, because I was quoting, it's Taxi Driver meets Lassie. We were both like, what does that mean? But having watched it, I'm like, okay, I get that.
I don't want to sum up the ending. I don't want to give the ending away, but I thought the ending was really poetic and heartfelt and just a great way of finishing this film.
Yeah, what's really intriguing about the plot, and everyone watching this is going to be like, my God, this sounds like a completely mad film, is like, you wonder how it was going to resolve. But there are these clues given to you through the film. Like I said, Caleb Landry Jones' character is incredibly emotionally mature, and he's incredibly worldly, actually. And he knows his situation, and he knows what makes him happy and what doesn't make him happy. He knows how this film should end. And, that's what happens.
Yeah, I think he has written it as well as directed, actually. I think it's his story.
Okay.
Based on that true life story. I don't know how close to him that story is, but yeah. I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. It's been released on digital platforms on the 11th of March in the UK and Ireland, so check it out. All the details down below. Star rating, Chris, for Dogman?
I really enjoyed this film, and I'm going to just slightly declare my interest that I love dogs, and who doesn't love a drag queen who loves dogs? I mean, that's like a double whammy for me. So, I kind of feel like cards on the table, it's playing into my hands, this one. But it's very, very well written for me. It's a very well made film. Really enjoyable. I'd absolutely watch it again. And I just think structurally it works really well. I think it's really well shot. I think it's incredibly well performed. So I think for me, I'm going to go very strong 4.
I'm going to go for 3, but it's a very strong 3. I think if we were given halves, it would be 3.5. But I don't think it's quite a 4.
Why is it not a 4?
It wasn't the film that I expected, which is a good thing, I think, because I was expecting it to be a lot grittier and, a bit darker. But maybe I've just seen too many films like that lately. I wasn't expecting it to be so light beat, and upbeat. So I think it was a surprise for that reason. But for that, I think it feels a little bit lightweight. I thought the story was great and the execution of it was great. It kept me compelled. So I did enjoy watching it.
I know why you're saying about the lightweightness. I didn't get that, actually. And for me, to be fair, I think it's such a strong 4 that I would have given it a 5 had it not been for the slight implausibility of the kind of 101 Dalmatians, the Home Alone type thing that happens a bit in it. Now, I'm entertained by that, and I got it, and I understand it in that context. But I suspect that other viewers may just kind of disregard the film because of that kind of stuff. Just go, that's just stupid. A dog wouldn't do that kind of stuff, How could it possibly? Yeah. So for that reason, I would hang back from a 5. But honestly, I finished watching it, and I was like, great film. It's a really good blend, and I think it's very hard to blend that many things together and come out with success at the end.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You know, so many people say, I'm going to make a funny thriller. It's going to have LGBT characters in, and there's going to be, you know, gunshot wounds, you know, in every other scene, and it's going to be, and you're like, okay, really nice to put all that together, but how many times does that really work? Not often. For me, putting all these things in the big pot, mixing it together, I think because of strong performances, strong writing, and strong filmmaking, it paid off on this one. And I think you do get all of these things. And I'm not suggesting that it would therefore appeal to everybody, but it's a multifaceted film for me. It's got a lot in it that works, and I commend it for that very much.
Yeah, I thought it had a good heart.
Yeah, you're in the friend zone with this film. I'm at least. I'm in second base with this film, for sure. You know, you got affection, I got love. Gotta say, hate mumbling in films, and the first 20 minutes he mumbles his little soul away. Had to do a little bit of subtitles because I've got deaf old ears. But once we got over the mumbling, he was a great performance from him. I thought he played it really well because, as you say, he's not playing some bonkers mad person who's just, you know, being raised by dogs and now wears dresses and avenges evil.
Yeah.
I mean, when you say those three things, you're like, oh my God, there's so many ways to play that. And the most obvious thing to do is play it like you're completely insane. He does not do that. He plays it like a very intelligent, sorted sort of person, very kind of calmly. And that's a great thing to bring to the role, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. You got DJ ears like me.
What?
Sorry, dear? Sorry?
What? We should start doing subtitles on here, actually. Can you imagine? We had subtitles across the bottom. Chris said... No, I was just going to quote something from a previous review that I'm not going to say again. But no.
Well, it's good to see you as always, Chris. Thank you very much for your input, and thank you everybody for watching. Don't forget to check out DogMan. Let us know what you think. Leave a comment down below. Smash the like button. Subscribe. I'm going to use all the lingo that kids use because it makes me down with the kids. See you next time.